Hi, everyone. This is Ruth Theresa with One Inspiring Woman, and I am excited to be with you guys this evening. I'm so excited. We are going to be talking about not only our lunar eclipse, we're going to be talking about some other planetary alignments that are coming up later on in 2021 and talking about some energies that are coming around us. We will be doing some angel cards and getting some more information for you guys. So I know in the next few minutes, we'll have people jumping on and asking all kinds of crazy questions. So we're going to be talking about our lunar eclipse that hits us May 26th. It actually starts Houston time, like I think 3:10 a.m. And then it'll be going off until we can kind of not really see it anymore because of all of the sunlight coming in from the new, from our sun coming in, kind of the dawn hours is going to make it really interesting. So that is a really great energy for a lot of us to get in on. But even if you don't see the lunar eclipse, and a lot of times people will ask me this, if I'm not looking at the lunar eclipse or if it's on the other side of the world from us, is it still going to affect me? Yes. It affects the entire planet. The entire planet gets affected by this, and it can be a little bit overwhelming. It can be a little daunting to deal with this, but there's a couple of aspects of the eclipses that we're going to talk about. And then I will be doing another big show before our solar eclipse, which will happen on June 10th, about 2 weeks later. I think it's 14 days after our lunar eclipse. Hello, Miss Bonnie. If y'all have any questions about this, let me know, but I'm going to be talking about a whole bunch of stuff. So if you have some questions about the lunar eclipse, let me know. Ask them as clear as you possibly can, and I will answer, do my best. So make sure that if you're joining me tonight, make sure you like and share and comment. That always helps not only myself, but let me know that I'm doing the right content, that y'all are really enjoying what I'm doing. So let's talk a little bit about, Carmel, you're just funny. It's one of those, she's like, Ruth Theresa. Yes. Okay. So eclipses are literally indications of major changes. And this has kind of gone on for a long period of time. It's one of those lunar eclipses are all about conclusions, and things that end during the lunar eclipse usually are something that should have been done for a long time. It's one of those things that are coming to a close, or things that should have been already come to a close. So if they haven't completely, they're going to do that. Hi, Miss Sarah and Miss Lily. Thank you for joining me tonight. We are talking about our lunar eclipses and some of the energy to be aware of that are coming in the next, we're like 6 days away from our lunar eclipse. So let's see. Lunar eclipses are all about conclusions, bringing emotional cycles that have run their course, but they haven't quite finished yet. It's one of those, that's one of the things that's going to be coming through. So this is kind of an interesting energy for most of us, and anything that's no longer serving us. Hello, Miss Carmen. So this is really an interesting time for most of us. This is a great time to kind of do a deep cleanse. Now, full moons, our full moon that night is in the sign of Sagittarius, which is also really great about joining in and kind of letting go of what's kind of like overwhelmed us, things that are kind of pushing us in different directions. So kind of the full moon is all about letting go of what's not working for us. And then we're going to get like an eclipse, kind of like a push of that energy with the lunar eclipse. We're going to get that even more so, pushing this energy of like letting go of things that no longer service us. So it's one of those, we're going to get this big push of like letting it all go. Anything that's not working, letting it go, which is a great thing because the eclipse is also about what is new. It's kind of what's been bothering us or blocking us. It's kind of in that moment that the sun momentarily kind of blocks the lunar, the lunar energy from us for just that like blink of an eye, because it literally only happens for like a second and a half. The total eclipse is very, very quick. This is all about kind of resetting our current emotions, our cycles, things that we're ready to get rid of, things that are not really working for us, revealing things, one of the interesting things is a lot of times we deal with light pollution and we don't always understand what that means. But that's kind of what we deal with when we have a regular moon. It's one of those kind of the light is obscured from our vision. It doesn't allow us to really come through really well. One of the cool parts about this is that this comes through and it kind of like, because it's been hidden, it's like now it's visible. Everything that's been hidden is now visible in this low light of the energy. And our moon kind of turns this beautiful blood red, and it's really kind of the essence of our earth kind of being pushed on it. So it doesn't really turn red, but it has this essence of red to it. The last thing about this part is I want to explain to you is this is really about like our spiritual aspects of the moon, representing like our deep, sensitive, emotional tides to things. So it's kind of like as the shadow passes over the moon, it's kind of like what is coming up and what's temporarily not coming up for us. That's kind of the interesting part for us to understand. And there may be a lot of emotions to come up. When this eclipse happens, we're kind of like in the midst of an eclipse cycle. And so that's going to keep pushing us. This lunar eclipse energy stays with us for about 3 months. And then 2 weeks after this happens, on the 26th of May, we also have June 10th solar eclipse, and that's going to last with us several months as well. So it's kind of like all of this is kind of pushing us out and pushing us into things that we think we're not ready for, but I guarantee you we really are. So it's one of those, it's really interesting energy in this aspect. So lunar eclipses are all about deep transformations. It's going to bring abrupt or sudden endings to things. So be aware of that. So if it ends, just know that it's meant to be there. Hey, Lucretia, how are you doing? Let's see. Eclipses are like, kind of the best way to put it is like our creator's energy kind of like pushing us. And I almost think the best way to explain it is, did you ever play red light, green light when you were a kid? And you turned around and you yelled, green light, and everybody started running up to you. And that's kind of what the moon is doing, is kind of like turning its back and like, who's going to touch me first? Who's going to get here first? And then when we turn back, it's one of those, and we say red light and we go into the stopping motion. It's one of those, that's the cool part. What is going to come up? So that's the really cool part in all of this, is like, what's going to move forward, what's going to come up to be let go of at this time frame, and where are we going to end up? Because where we end up, we're going to feel like, oh my gosh, this is not where I need to be. This is kind of scary, but it's also our creator's energy pushing us into areas going, you really are ready for this. You just never thought you were ready for this. And so it's really pushing our energy to move forward. It's part of the cosmic plan, and it's one of those during this time frame over the next few days, as we get ready for this more and more energetically. Who do you need to forgive? Who do you need to release? And who do you need to let their stuff go back to them? So many times, one of the easy ones is a lot of times, like, we pick up fears from our parents or our grandparents or our siblings and everything else, and they're afraid of something. And so we take on that fear for us. And so that's an interesting energy, but it really isn't our fear. It's one of those, it's their fear. So gift it back to them. And it's not necessarily handing them, here's your fear back. It's like, here, I'm going to gift this energy back to you. And I'm going to ask you to pass this off to creator energy so that you can be free of it as well. I don't want you to hang on to this anymore. I'm going to gift it back to you because you gave it to me, and I'm going to ask you to give it to creator energy. So things are going to start to flow easier for you and not hold you back as well. So one of the things that most people forget to forgive on anything is yourself. Now, a lot of times we may go, okay, my ex, whatever, treated me badly. And we're like, I need to forgive that person for that. And that's great. It really is. But who let him treat you like that? Most likely you did. And so the really cool part about that, now you have an opportunity to kind of go, I forgive myself. Why did I let that person treat me like this? Why did that I allow this person to treat me this badly? I knew better. I knew I shouldn't have done it. So I'm going to forgive myself as well. I'm going to forgive them and I'm going to move them off. I'm not forgetting what they did. I'm just willing to forget or forgive. And then what I'm going to say is, I forgive myself as well. Why would I let someone treat me like that? If you wouldn't let someone treat your best friend like that, why would you ever let someone treat you like that? It's really important to understand that concept because we have a lot of energy coming in during this time frame. One of the things that's going to be really kind of interesting because we've got always a lunar eclipse happens during a full moon. It can't happen any other time. I know, it's crazy, right? So this full moon energy that we normally have, it's like this full moon is like we should be on our way to our dreams. What do we want to create? Where do we want to draw in that energy to us? And it's kind of like anything that's blocking us, we want to get into a new essence of that, like where we want to go with this. Our new moon is kind of where we set our intentions. Our full moon is where we kind of like let go of anything that's keeping us from that. And then as we get to that last quarter moon, right before we get to the new moon again, we should be seeing those aspects coming around. We should be seeing that energy coming into us and kind of anchoring us in what's coming up next. And then know that this is usually a very emotional time. Like I said, anything that you haven't let go of emotionally will come up. And it doesn't mean hold it down anymore. It's one of those, let it out, let it see the light of day, let it see the energy and kind of allowing that to come forward. Hello, Miss Ellie. Allowing that energy to come forward. Endings are very necessary. If you are still dating the first person you ever went with, it's one of those, that's great for most people, but it's one of those, or we think it's great, but it's one of those, you've never gotten to grow past that interaction. You've never gotten past that. You know, if you were still in love with your childhood sweetheart, that's great. But it's one of those, most of us have broken up with that energy and we've learned from that, like, this is not what I wanted, or this is where I thought I was going, and this is where I want to go next. And allowing that energy to come in really, really fast and hard for us and teaching us new life lessons. So many times I hear clients go, oh, I don't want to have any problems. I want to have this perfect, easy life. Well, you know, a perfect, easy life doesn't teach you anything. It doesn't teach you anything about where you want to go or what's coming up for you. Like I said, every single moon gives us a chance to embrace changes, letting go, and like kind of cultivating like new connections or new energy, or where do we want to go. And developing our psychic practice. We should be opening up to the energy on the other side, kind of like, what energy are we working on? What is the energy that we want to deal with or pick up on at some point? We are going to really want to change and grow through this time frame. And that could also mean that we want to get into a class of some type. We want to start a new book. We want to do something new or different. So know that that's kind of the energy that we want to bring into us. Doing a small ritual was really great to do during the full moon and the lunar eclipse. It can be as small as kind of like lighting a candle. It could be writing your intentions down on a piece of paper, or getting that energy going, and engaging in energies, anything that's holding you back to move forward. The energy of the last lunar eclipse through the beginning of the new year is kind of opened our way to kind of bring in more productivity, more activity, and positive change. And that change has been really kind of constant. We've been kind of going through this constant change over the last few months, because that happened right at the end of the year. This eclipse is going to be in the sign of Sagittarius, which is going to bring up a really interesting energy, and kind of some energies of kind of like testing your faith, kind of bringing in excess, and kind of like, where are my virtues? Where are my energy in all of this? So that's kind of where we're going with this. It's kind of like, what is it bringing up for me? And kind of a very interesting energy. One of the other aspects that I haven't heard a lot of people talk about is this, what is it? A blood flower full moon in the sign of Sagittarius. That's the whole title for this one. Also puts this moon in square with Jupiter, which can cause us like to kind of like test our faith. Like, where should we go with this? It's kind of like, kind of where do we want the excess to go to? Where do we want to draw that energy in from? And then Mercury and Venus are square to Neptune, which adds like this, like really interesting kind of like confusion, deception, and vulnerability. All of this happens while we're dealing with Mercury in retrograde. Mercury in retrograde, a lot of people have a lot of questions about. They don't quite understand it. They get a lot of misinformation about it. And a lot of times, because whoever they learned about it from, like, oh my gosh, Mercury in retrograde is really horrible. Mercury in retrograde can be an amazing time, and it can bring in a lot of healing, not only for you, but the other people around you. This is a great time to really work on communications. Like I said, when you have a problem, it allows you to fix it. If you don't know what the problem is, it's like it doesn't allow that to happen. So when you have a problem during Mercury in retrograde with communication, know that there was already a problem there. Mercury just kind of flashlighted it, kind of like, this is where you need to go. This is where you need to be looking at. So when that happens, make sure that you are pushing that energy in the right direction, that you're allowing it to be fixed and not getting upset. I often laugh during Mercury in retrograde. I think it's a really fun time because it's allowing me to look at my life in a different way. Where am I not having good communication with other people? Where am I having miscommunications with other people? Or where are, especially text messaging. I very rarely text message during Mercury in retrograde because a lot of times we think the message is really clear, but when they get it on the other side, they're going, what? I didn't understand any of it. And that's a really good time to go, okay, let me see where this is coming in at. It's one of those, where would I want this energy to kind of clear up and open up in some areas? And that's a really, really good sign for all of us, is what's coming up next. Where do you want to have that great communication? And changing the communication within us, upgrading our own words is very, very positive and very possible during this time frame. The most of the time that we have miscommunications during Mercury in retrograde is showing us where we have the problems. It's one of those, it just brings in the energy. Let's see. So we have several aspects that can be challenging. And like I said, problems are good signs of how to work through things. So we've got a couple of them, and I'm going to try to explain to them really simply because there's a lot of planets in retrograde. Right now, we've got a lot of squaring and pushing of energy out in the solar system, which affects us. The further away the planet is, the more likely it's to be a global event or changing a lot of people. That's why usually Mercury in retrograde only affects a few people, or affects one person here and one person there. But like when we have like Pluto and Neptune that are way far out on the other side, and even in Jupiter, way far, far out there, they're going in retrograde. It affects everybody. And one of the interesting things that I love about retrogrades is how people work through them. When you change how you're working with other energy, it changes how things are happening for yourself, and how is the communication changing. Remember, Mercury is all about changing. Pluto is all about this really amazing, transformative kind of like, almost like this phoenix, like what's being let go of so it can come into a new realm of energy, which makes it really cool. Let's see. So we've got our moon square with Jupiter is not usually that challenging of an aspect, but we also have it during this total lunar eclipse, which is going to make it a little bit more challenging. And then it also really affects kind of like our Mars, Saturn kind of coming together. We have more negative qualities of Jupiter coming up because of all of that. and it's likely to be more out there. You're going to see a lot of negative energy, or a lot of people just almost like jumping on other people, or like the truth just kind of like almost jumping out of them. And that's kind of an interesting part. So really listen to what people say. I think that's the most interesting part of this. You may experience very changeable moods. Like you'll be really happy one minute and then kind of really sad and kind of like, I'm not really sure on this. And that can be really interesting, almost like you're feeling almost like bipolar energy, like I'm really happy and then I'm really sad. And that's just kind of what's coming in at this time frame. You're going to feel this most of all close to the eclipse time frame. It's going to, one of the things that I found that I thought was really interesting is if you were dating, take care not to lower your standards or ignore the obvious character flaws. When you were dating someone, listen to the words that they're saying. I've had this conversation with many people over the last few weeks. Is they're like, I started dating someone and then all of a sudden the truth just blurted out that he's actually married, or had that with two people. Another one was, I started dating this person and I found out that they're like a professional thief. That's what they do, is like steal things from people all the time. It was really interesting, kind of like they were just like, they blurted it out. But it's not only in small situations or in relationships with you, you're going to see this on a global scale. You're going to see world powers, people that are in authority, people that are leaders, just like burst out with their truth. And it's like, really listen. It's like, that's their real true positive energy coming through of like, what do I want you to really know? But I've had this a lot with dating or very close relationships with others. It's going to be having conversations during this time frame that can be really great are ones of how what has embarrassed the person in the past. That's always an interesting one. How their old relationships were. When someone blames everything on the other person, a relationship going bad is two people. Someone ignored something and something else happened. So that's a really interesting aspect of it. And then you may also have this tendency towards excess. It could come in food, alcohol, drugs, gambling, gaming, kind of energy, kind of pushing all of this to you. Which is a really interesting vibe for most people. And so you're going to kind of see people almost like, I don't want to do anything. I don't want to share my time with anybody, and kind of like keeping that aspect really strong. Charitable works is something people should do, especially during this summer. If you've got time to donate some time to a charity that you like, pets or dogs or whatever it is, make sure that you do that. That's a really good time to kind of bring this around, because you're also going to have like this kick of karma with Saturn in retrograde. Saturn is kind of the king planet of karma. And so it's one of those, during this time frame, you're going to see people kind of be kicked with karma. And it's probably what's gone on since Saturn was in retrograde last year. And it's an interesting concept when this happens, because it's one of those, like, you've got this, like, they'll say something and they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't even realize say this, but it's like karma will kick them right there. Like, before you know it, something's going to happen. And it's not like you need to do something. It's one of those, it will just literally happen to the person. So it's kind of like this interesting phenomena of when Saturn is in retrograde. So you're going to see a lot of that kind of being kicked around, people coming in together. Let's see. We're also going to have one of the strange ones we're going to have Mercury square Neptune. And it's one of those, and that's kind of like May 25th through June 9th. And that's when Mercury stations full retrograde on the 29th. So that's going to bring up confusion, feeling like people are being deceived, misunderstandings, and major influences under this full moon this year. So that's kind of like this extra kick of that energy. So it's kind of interesting how it's going to kind of distort our thinking, and people may just feel like, oh, I always get away with it. But with Mercury in retrograde, it's going to bring it really out and clear. And this is, like I said, a really great time to kind of clear up stuff with other people. if you have to deal with a lot of business during Mercury in retrograde, make sure that you're not starting anything new. Make sure that you are starting something that's already been going on, or you're bringing it to a conclusion. So it's kind of like moving that energy along, but not necessarily starting something new. One of the things that I thought was really interesting is you're going to see people being led into embarrassing moments. I thought this came up with a couple of different planets during this time frame of what's coming up around us. You will kind of see even conspiracy theories kind of get some energy with this. You may even see people like wanting to purposely hide the conspiracy theories and not really talk through it. So I think that was really interesting. One of the other ones that's going to be an interesting combination, you're going to have Venus square Neptune, and that's going to give us a heightened need to Venus, of course, is all about love and feeling loved and feeling nurtured. And it's going to bring up this almost like this tenderness or this caringness with other people. But it's also going to make us kind of at risk, because Neptune's kind of like that dreamy planet is going to kind of be like over idolization of people that are coming into our life. Like, oh, this person is perfect. They don't have any flaws. Well, everybody has flaws. That's why we're here. So we have issues to deal with. It's one of those tendencies to distort what someone is saying or what could be brought up. You're going to have an exaggeration of disappointments or even scandals, and this feeling that people are being taken advantage of. So that's something really important to kind of understand. Matters that may become relationship issues. You may see people have more outside affairs. I was trying to think of the word. It's like having affairs or starting new relationships, even though they're already in a relationship. So having these affair type relationships, a lot of people end up with a lot of low self-esteem and feelings of insecurity, or not feeling like they're completely secure in what's going on around us. Both Mercury and Venus square Neptune, and this is a very easy time to become confused, deceived, and generally get wrong impressions. So not that you shouldn't trust yourself. Make sure that you're testing yourself several times. Like, am I getting the right energy? Am I getting the right information with this? It's really, really important. And then even like when you're dealing with like communications or your love life, finances, business dealings, this is going to be a really, really strong time frame. Courtney is like, let me stay inside and tell you. It's not to stay inside. It's because you want to grow. You want to grow. This is kind of the parts that we are really, it's a tight learning session. So think of it as like getting your college degree, getting your doctorate in life. This is the time to work on it. This is the time. This is really hard aspects for us to work on, but it's a really important. One of the ones that make me feel like I should stay inside sometimes is Saturn is going to square Uranus. And this is going to be a very restrictive change, and it's going to be unexpected. Like the changes of what's been affecting people are going to change. This is going to be really interesting. It can bring up changes that we don't really want or don't really think we want, but at the end, it will be something that we really wanted, and kind of change some things. It can make it harder to make changes. And it can also bring up a time of being very frustrated, very lots of tension, sudden unexpected changes. And so it's kind of stay open and be flexible with things. And I often think of that kind of like with Mercury in retrograde. When you get like, oh my gosh, this has to work now in the next 5 seconds or I'm going to freak out. It's one of those, you're just pushing the energy in a negative way. So if you kind of say, you know what, I really love this energy, or this is what's showing me that I already had a problem, I already had a computer issue that I should have been taken care of and I didn't. Now that's kind of a new energy, like, okay, now I can work on this. Now that I know what the problem is, now I know where to fix it. So be patient, be flexible, and be ready to make changes. Ready to kind of like, where do I need to make a change? Anything that is bothering you or bringing up negative energy, make sure that you're letting it go. Get rid of all of those things. Get those rid. So let's pull a couple of angel cards and see what we get really quick with some other energy. Truth and integrity. This is a really important one, especially with Mercury in retrograde. Make sure that you're using your truth. Make sure you're standing in your integrity when things are coming out, so that you are allowing that energy to bring that to a new healed state. Listening. So many times people just don't listen. I'm guilty as well, but make sure that you're listening to other people's words, especially over the summer, that you're really listening to the words that are coming out of their mouth. And when they blurt out that truth, remember it's a truth. It's there for a reason. It's not just like, whatever. No. That came out for a reason, and don't let them sidestep you with like, no, that's not really the way it is. The truth came out of their mouth. Intention. What are the intentions that you're setting for this full moon eclipse energy? Write it down. Get really, really clear. And if you're able to, make sure that you get into some type of ceremony, even if you do it yourself. Make sure that you're getting in some type of ceremony to kind of honor this energy, so that you can bring this to a new healed state. Let's do this one. New beginnings. Eclipse energy is all about this brand new energy. Okay. So what are you willing? This is not time. This time to start something new, but this is the time to start thinking new thoughts. This isn't the time to start something new, but this is the time to start thinking the new thoughts. So it's one of those, it's really important in that aspect. Let's do one more card for us. Answered prayer. What are you asking for? What are you really asking for? I will tell you that most time that people pray, they're really telling creator's energy, like, I want this to happen and I want this to happen and this is going wrong. They already know what's going wrong. Ask them what you want the conclusion to be. What do you want the end to be? How do you want this to come about for that? I thank y'all so much for joining me. Next Thursday, I will be on Thursday Night Live. I will be talking about our numerology for next month. If you have received my newsletter for May, I will be doing a reading on the dreams. I will be doing dream interpretation at that time. So if you got my newsletter for May, this is a really good time to submit your dream if you've been having some really interesting dreams. I will be doing dream interpretations along with the numerology, so that'll be a really fun one. And I thank y'all so much for joining me tonight. If you are choosing to, I do have a group reading open this Saturday from 7 to 10 here at my home in Sugar Land. If you're interested in joining me, make sure you email me or get some more information for that. I will be doing, like I said, more Thursday Night Lives. I will have some new Thursday Night Live information that's going to be changing in June. We're going to do a couple of things a little bit differently. And I hopefully will have a couple of students that will be joining me as well. So I'm really, really, really excited about that. Really excited about some changes for not only for myself, but for other people as well. And kind of hear me talk to my students. I think that'll be a fun information time for everybody to learn something new about not only yourself, but other people's questions as well. I thank y'all so much for joining me. Y'all have an amazing, amazing week. And I will see you after the eclipse. Y'all have a great night, guys.